All right, everybody, how's it going this evening? We are here back again with a straight couch talk with me and Rachel. Now, last week we kind of started this whole thing off with me and the lead up to me and how everything going. I grazed over my stuff a little bit. Now, this time it's called Before the Meetup. So that means now Rachel's going to go ahead and give a little bit of a pass through on her past before me and all the way up to her side of the meetup before me, and then a little bit after on what's going on now. So, hey.
Okay. Hello everyone. Um, ooh, this is gonna be a touchy one for me. Um, okay, so where to start? Kind of a little bit of my background, I guess. For you that don't know, I am a professional ballet dancer. I grew up dancing at Oregon Ballet Theater. I started dancing from the age of 3 and I danced at Oregon Ballet Theater from 3 to 17 years old, up until my car accident that I was in. Um, During that time, around 12, 13 years old, when I was in eighth grade, I was roofied by a couple of my so called friends. And at that time, I in eighth grade, I had just been in public school for the first time ever. I was raised in a private school, so much smaller classes. And by the time I was in seventh grade, I was in a college level with my studies. So when I got put into eighth grade, it was very challenging for me. I didn't know I had ADD until I was put into a class of 30 and there was no structure, no discipline, and my curiosity got the best of me. And then I started having boyfriends for the first time. And I had my mom also made sure that I didn't take any sex education classes. So I didn't even know what sex was when I was in eighth grade. Um, So I had a boyfriend that kept pressuring me to have sex, and I kept saying no, that I wasn't going to do anything that I didn't want. I didn't know what it was, first of all, but I didn't want to. And I remember uh, it was Nutcracker with the Oregon Ballet Theater, a group of my friends, and the boyfriend at the time were and a couple other people were supposed to come watch me dance and perform at the Keller Auditorium downtown Portland. And they decided last minute that they weren't going to, but they wanted me to still come and hang out beforehand. So, or afterwards. So I ended up going over there afterwards and was roofied by some friends, and uh, they took me down the street to where the boyfriend was at the time. And I just remember going and hiding in a closet and just knowing something wrong was going to happen. And that friend at the time, she came in there and started crying and just apologizing. And I just was confused, not knowing why she was apologizing for. So as we were sitting there in the closet, the door opened and the boyfriend and two other kids pulled me out of the closet and started stripping my clothes off and threw me on the bed, and I blacked out. I don't remember after that. I just remember waking up um, the next morning back at my friend's house. And fast forward, get to school after Christmas break, and now I was like a slut. I was having sex with all these people. I was a whore. There was all these rumors going around. Then at church, there was rumors going around there. So I had no idea what happened. I had no recollection, had no idea what anybody was talking about. And I fell into a deep depression and was suicidal and tried to commit suicide many times and failed. And even ran away from home. Um, but I thank goodness for my mom being in tune, and she kept getting told, that I was supposed to get taken out of school and go back to homeschooling. So she took me out of school and went back to homeschooling. So went to ninth grade, and I decided I was going to try high school again. And um, in there, the ex-boyfriend uh, was at the same school, and I started having flashbacks, and I was blacking out in school. And so then I started remembering and piecing together what happened. And I started going down a whole self-sabotage road, and then a cycle of abusive relationships into a abusive marriage for 8 years. And I ended up marrying a narcissist. Um, Not only that, being Navajo, he knew a whole nother level of um, dark medicine, bad medicine. And so there was a whole nother spiritual warfare that I dealt with that I didn't even know really existed until I married my ex-husband. And going down that road, I ended up getting cancer 2 times. I had cancer, liver cancer, when I was 24. And then um, I was pregnant with triplets. And in the native way, when you marry into two different tribes, traditionally, whoever um, goes, the spouse, whoever goes and lives with the family of the other spouse, you're supposed to adapt to that culture or that tribe and their ways. So, being that my ex-husband came in and he was living with us, he was supposed to adapt to the Shoshone ways and not to the Navajo ways. And if I were to go and live with him, I would have adapted the Navajo ways and still kept my Shoshone ways, but being on his land and the reservation and his family would have been in the Navajo. Um, so ended up getting pregnant in 2015 with triplets, and it was not planned, and there was no help or anything. It was all natural. I knew I was spiritually pregnant with twins, but I didn't know I was pregnant with triplets until I had my miscarriage. And um, with that one, uh, not many know, but I was cursed and lost my babies. So about 4 months pregnant, July 10th, 2015. Um, we were up in the mountains with my family and we were fishing, but I wasn't fishing, I was just watching. And in my family's ways, the women always, participated in hunting or undressing, dressing the deer and or the elk or the fish and dealt with blood. But my ex kept telling me that in his ways, um, women aren't supposed to look at blood, and if you look at blood, then you're going to miscarry. So he kept saying this to me. He kept telling me, "Stop looking at that blood. You're going to miscarry. It's going to be your fault." And I, one day, my papa and my dad, heard him saying that to me, and they finally looked at him and said, "You know what? You need to quit saying that, speaking that way. That's not our ways. You're on our land, and you need to be respectful and quit speaking that into existence, or you're gonna make it happen." And he got mad and just kind of stormed off. Well, the next day we were sitting up on the fire road, and I was just sitting in the bed of the truck, and I was looking down the hill, and I was just I was watching my niece. She had just got a fish, and so there was this big pool of blood, and I was just kind of staring off at it, but my mind was completely somewhere else. And all of a sudden my ex, he just looked at me and says, "It's your fault." And I come like, "What?" And he says, "Your fault. You're gonna miscarry those babies. It's your fault." And finally, I it's just like I just kind of just closed my eyes, and I just was kind of just praying. And all of a sudden, he get up off the bed of the truck and started walking. And he said, "I told you it's your fault." And he started speaking in Dene. And all of a sudden, I saw this big black cloud surround him, and his eyes changed, and there were these black pitch black gloss over eyes. And he just started speaking at me in his language, and I could hear the translation of what he was saying in my head, and he was cursing my babies, but he was doing a sacrifice. And instantly I felt this sharp pain in my stomach, and uh, that night I miscarried my babies. And I remember sitting in my parents had a camper, so I was just kind of laying in there, and I started losing a lot of blood, and my mom had to rush me to the ER. But we tried to get my ex out of the bed and out of the tent, and he was just cussing up a storm at my mom because he was so worried about going fishing early in the morning that he was gonna miss going fishing. And he was just cussing at us and telling that he wasn't going to go, and it was my fault. Why should he have to go? So finally gets in the car and sits in the front seat. He starts cussing even more and yelling at my mom. And all of a sudden she's like, "Ronnie, you need to quit yelling and quit stopping like that and stop acting like that." And uh he just kind of looked at her and said, "What are you gonna do? Hit me?" And I just remember looking at him. I was like, "Nah, I'm done." So I got out of the car and grabbed him and pulled him out of the car and said, "I don't want nothing to do with you. Get out of here." And got in the car, and we drove and got to the little tiny hot ER that was right there in the little res. And they had a little old ultrasound. So I got to hear my baby's heartbeat for the first and last time, laying there. And by the time when we got back, they just told me to be bed rest and just take it easy and go to the hospital up north. That was a 2-hour drive. We were up past Boise, up in the mountains. And so we got back, and I ended up miscarrying my twins. So my mom and I got back in the car and drove to the other hospital. And by the time we got there, they had just opened, and they confirmed my miscarriages. But when they were giving me an ultrasound, uh, they were kind of like going like this and being quiet, and wasn't really saying anything to me, and I knew something was wrong. And they ended up not telling me anything and just sent me on my way, and I ended up having another miscarriage. So from there, it led to cancer, um, from not getting the proper care and the doctors on the reservation not treating me properly. So fast forward, I ended up um, coming down with stage 4 cancer. I had a tumor in the uterine muscle that was, I don't know, about the size of a big grapefruit, um, and was on my deathbed while ending my marriage and going through a divorce. And I ended up dying in Mexico. I went down there in January, at the beginning of January, with my dad and my grandpa, and it was going to be my last trip uh, that I was going to have. And I remember one night I was sitting there on the bed, and all of a sudden, like all these entities started coming around and started putting all of these suicidal thoughts in my head. And they were telling me to all these different ways to kill myself: go into the ocean, jump off the balcony into the water, go drown myself in the pool, bash my head into the wall, uh, all these different things that I just remember is curling up in a ball, grabbing my head and yelling at my dad to make it stop. And all of a sudden, he just came over and grabbed me and pulled me into his arms, and I was in heaven. I was in Creator's arms. And um, and there I was given a choice to either stay or come back with a mission. And so I came back, and part of my mission, what I was told, was that I was to heal myself from cancer naturally and to show others how to heal, and that we have that power within us and within Creator to heal ourselves naturally. And so I came back, and so going through that, I ended up going through all these different natural treatments. I was going to school for herbology, so I'm a herbalist. So I was able to put my schooling to use, um, and uh, heal myself from that. I was able to purge my tumor and heal that. Um, so after that, I I was with my best friend, and uh, we spent a lot of time together. And he, at one point, was living with my ex-husband and I to protect me because the abuse was really bad in the home. So he came and lived with me for a while, and uh, was here to help me. But after a while, we ended up having feelings for each other, and he was in a different place. Um, I don't really want to talk too much about his stuff, but it was trying, and he is in a relationship, so it was really hard uh, falling in love with my best friend that was in a relationship that he was not happy in. And the thing is with him is that we we knew each other before we ever came here. And so it was like, and I've known him for a long time. And so there's always been this different connection that I can't really explain. Um, it's a universal connection, I guess, if you want to say. So um, we ended up uh, helping each other out and really helping each other. And um, he taught me a lot about finding love for myself. I think that's the biggest thing, because I stopped loving myself, and having cancer And going through all the abuse that I'd been through, I didn't think that anybody would ever love me. And he did show that to me. Um, Things just didn't align. And um, and I know his heart, he didn't want to hurt me, but instead of communicating with me, he just ghosted me and left and disappeared. And when that happened, I was pregnant and then got in a car accident. And after that, I had huge brain trauma from the car accident. Then I ended up, from the heartbreak, I ended up having a stroke. And so I went down this like dark rabbit hole of really feeling like no one was ever going to love me again, no one was ever going to want me. Uh, I went down a real dark rabbit hole, and I stopped posting all my content. I stopped being there for you guys. I couldn't be there for myself. I wanted to die. I was suicidal. I was doing everything I could not to go back to drinking. And by the um, time went on that year, I started kind of getting myself back together, because all that happened around March in 2018, and March, April, and started getting back into modeling more, and was traveling more. Um, Tyra Banks from America's Next Top Pop Model was contacting me, trying to get me to come onto the TV show. They were literally telling me that I was basically going to be the America's Next Top Model, and they were telling me how that whole thing works, and that they basically pick um, who the model is before the show even starts and who's going to win. Um, so they were flaunting a lot of money at me. They were matching everything I was making, and more, and offering money to sustain my wellness center while I was gone, to pay all my employees, to hire someone to take my place. Um, a lot of money they were throwing at me, and but something just wasn't setting right. And at that time too, my sister was pregnant with my niece. And so I just kept thinking that I'm going to miss this opportunity to, be there for my niece, and, be that auntie, because I never really had a good auntie growing up the way that I was told that aunties were supposed to be. And so I wanted to make sure that I was that auntie that I never got and that I wished I had for her. So I had to make a huge decision whether to either go to America's Next Top Model, or to stay home. And I ended up turning it down. And instead, I went to Greece and traveled to Greece and parts of a little bit of Italy, and did some modeling. And by the time I got back, my grandma had a stroke, and I was the caregiver for my grandma. And that was really hard. At that time, too, right before my grandma had the stroke, my brother's lung collapsed, and so he was in the ER. And so I was staying, taking night shifts with my mom and my brother's fiance. And we were taking night shifts and staying with him and making sure that he wasn't alone. And one day I was sitting there at the window, and I was looking out the window, and I was like, something's wrong. And I just, all of a sudden, I didn't want to worry my brother or anything. So I just calmly just looked at him, and I was like, I'll be back in a little bit. I gotta go home and get some stuff. And meanwhile, I'm being told, Rachel, you gotta hurry and get home now. Um, so I'm like speeding, rushing home, and I pull up to the light, and I notice a car in front of me, and I'm like, it looks like my sister's car. And so we pull around the light and start pulling down into the driveway. And she stops right at the front of the driveway, gets out of the car, and we live right down the street from the fire department. And so all of a sudden, I look down, and the fire truck starts pulling out and turns and starts heading our way. And my sister looked at me, and she goes, "That's coming here." And my heart just dropped. But I knew that I had to pull everything together. And as grandma would say, the warrior up. And so we have a long driveway. So I drove down the driveway, and the fire truck beat the paramedics there. And I was the one that went to all the VA appointments with my grandma. So I knew all of her medical records, all of everything that, you need to know. And so I quickly went in there, and I saw my grandma, and she was just laying there frozen and could barely move, but her eyes locked with me, and I just kept talking to her spirit that it was gonna be okay. And part of me, I just wanted to look at her and drop and just start crying. And but I just went into this mode, and snapped it together, and just boom, I just splurged everything that the EMT needed to know about my grandma and what was going on. Then my mom wasn't there, so I had to make the executive decision of what to do. And it happened to be that, because we would have taken her down to the Portland VA, that's usually where we go. And um, for some reason, the Portland VA was completely full, and uh, they couldn't take my grandma. So they looked at me, and they're like, okay, so we can't take her at the VA, so where can we take your grandma? And where do you want her to go? And I said, well, my brother's down here at the hospital in the ICU. And so I was like, well, let's just take her over there, so at least I have both my family members in the same building. So they ended up being 2 floors apart. So we ended up spending that Thanksgiving um, in the hospital. Then she came home, and she started getting really better. And I stayed by her side, and my mom and we took shifts, and we would run back and forth between the floors between my brother and my grandma, and we all take shifts staying there, watching over her, so she was never alone. And it was really hard when she got put into the care facility after for rehabilitation, because we couldn't stay the night there with her, so it was really hard leaving her. And so she was improving really well. And Christmas came, and I remember looking at her on Christmas, knowing that she wasn't going to be there with us much longer. And what's kind of ironic is that the night that Erik uh, got arrested is the night that my grandma passed away. And not many people know how, because we haven't talked about it. But I ended up staying the night that night at my parents' house, something just made me stay, so I just was gonna sleep on the couch. And I got to sit with my grandma. I remember showing her pictures of Greece, and we just sat on the couch for a while. Then my mom decided she was going to work on her with body coding, and ended up all these things coming up of being afraid or not feeling worthy to go back home. So she worked on her, and then took her to the bathroom, and then all of a sudden I just hear my mom yelling, "Mom, Mom, stay with us." And then grandma started speaking Shoshone again. That's the thing is too, is after her stroke, she was only speaking Shoshone. She wasn't speaking English for a moment, because Shoshone, that's her language. So she wasn't, uh, she was speaking Shoshone again. So and what's also strange too is that night or earlier, I got a text message from 911 saying that 911 service was, all phone lines were down. So I remember just kind of like we were like trying to get my grandma to walk, and she kept feeling like she was falling, and I don't know if she had I don't remember if she had another heart attack, or she had a heart attack or another stroke. I don't remember. But we just ended up carrying her down the stairs, put her in the car, and my mom was gonna drive, but I told her no, I'll drive. You sit with mom. And my brother got in the driver's seat, and I told him to call the ER and let them know that we were on our way and what the situation was, and to look up her files so they know her medical history and what car we're driving, the route we're going, so that I wouldn't get pulled over. So I was speeding, and as we were going down the freeway, I just saw a bright light go in the mirror as I was driving, and my grandma passed. And when by the time we got to the ER and when we opened up the door, her body just kind of just fell out of the car as they caught her. And my brother and I, again, we wanted to just like scream, but my mom looked, I almost, and my mom looked at me and said no. So I just kind of just bit it and sucked it and just warriored it, and parked the car and went in, and then started praying. So after all of that, I fell down even more in rabbit hole and depression, and didn't want to be here anymore. I didn't have purpose anymore. I felt like I lost my best friend. I lost my big mom. She raised me. Um, so I think it's interesting that on the day she passed, that's when you were arrested. It's interesting time. So if it weren't for my best friend Monica, she held my shit together. She helped me. She held me accountable. She was my workout buddy. So we were working out, and we were, she was going through her stuff too, similar to what I was going through in relationship wise. And so we were really there for each other. Went through the roller coaster. We were like, all right, we're on this roller coaster together. But during that time, all that time, I just kept saying, I'm just going to be like my grandma, and I'm just going to say what she says, and I'm going to wait till I get to heaven, and I'm going to choose amongst the gods, and that's it. I'm okay with being single for the rest of my life. I'm done getting hurt. I was done, and I was like ready to literally be alone. But at the same time, it was really hard because I ended up isolating myself from my family because I was looking at everyone around me in relationships and having children, and then watching people not even being grateful for what they had when I was like, if only I could have that. There's so many of us that wish we had that, and you're not even grateful for it. And so I would go through these battles of really trying to convince myself I was okay being alone for the rest of my life, and that there's no one good enough for me, and that's how it is. I'm too picky. I had the nickname, people give me the nickname of picky. And I told them, I said, well, sure, it's picky to you, but I know what I want. And I said, so if that makes me being picky, then I'm picky. I just know what I want. And so I just started just really focusing back on me, and also in the native way too. You're supposed to take that year to heal after a loss of loved ones. So I was really focusing on my healing and just me. So I started dating myself again. I started, um, it was fun. There's a lot of people that are like, why you sitting at the restaurant by yourself? And I'm like, because I'm enjoying being by myself, and I don't have to have someone to have fun. I can have fun by myself. It's okay. I enjoy being by myself. I It's quiet. I have fun. Um, I love people watching, and it's just watching how people interact with each other. And so I was kept going on this convincing for almost a year that I didn't want to be in a relationship. And but then lo and behold, comes November 11th last year, I like, you know what? I kept seeing all these things, manifestation, manifestation, and I was like, fine, I'm gonna just do it. Like I keep trying to convince myself that I'm okay with being alone, but really I don't want to. I really want a best friend. I want a companion. I want to be held. I just I want someone. I don't need anybody. I just want someone. And I don't want to do the work as far as like trying to heal the person and do the work for them. I like it. It need to be if we can heal together, but you got to do your work. No, I'm gonna do the work for you, and then you make me do the work. I'm done with that. I'm done being the a fixer. So I sat outside at 11:11, and I was like, all right, creator, I was like, this is what I want, and this is what I need, and you know better than I do. And if this person really exists, if he does, I don't know. I was like, it's like 1% chance he exists. I'm giving you that. And but I put it out there and I just let it go, and I said, you know my heart the best and what I need, and I'm not going to choose for myself. You choose for me. And went about my day. And later on that night, I'm sitting there on the couch, and all of a sudden, I hear my grandma's voice loud and clear go, "Get on that Facebook dating app." And I was like, "Are you kidding me?" She goes, "Get on that Facebook dating app." And I was like, "Are you serious? Like, this is really what we're resorting to now? Like, I really have to get on Facebook dating app? I like you like I don't want like I already tried to do the Tinder or whatever. I don't know, whatever that stuff is. I already tried a couple of the other stuff. My sister even set me up on, no, it was Tinder. My sister tried to set up a whole profile on Tinder. She ended up getting me banned and kicked off Tinder within like the first, I think it was like for 4 hours of even being on there. She got me kicked off of there. I never even got to see anything or what was going on. She controlled the whole entire thing. I don't even know what pictures she put on there. Have no idea. But she was like, "You're doing this. I don't care." But she got me kicked off of there. So thanks, Jacqueline. So so I got kicked off of there because of my sister. And so then I was like, this is just stupid. And all the conversations, I am not a person for small talk. I don't like small talk. You're like, hey, hi, how's it going? Okay, good. That's it. All right. You lost me. Done. Like I like deep intellectual conversations, stimulate my brain. And like feed my brain. And so finally I was like, all right, I'll get on there. So I'm like, well, I'm going to make my profile big. I'm going to put all this intimidating stuff of all of this stuff that I do. Then it's at least it'll at least scare people away that, we'll just shut them down that I don't even want to even waste my breath on right now because I don't even know why I'm on this dating app, but I'm doing it because I'm being told to get on this dating app and we're in this time and I hate this because I'm old fashioned and like, why can't we just go back to the just meeting and seeing the eyes across the room and like coming to each other? Like, no, has to be through the phone. Stupid, but here we are. And so I got on there and started talking to a couple people, but it was stupid and I put my phone away. Then I happened to wake up and there was Erik. And so I was like, one of the biggest things that I said, he has to be a veteran and he has to be Indigenous. And that was like the top things. I was like, he has to be. And in order to work with me, you have to be a veteran. That's the way I was raised, and the mindset will go together. Like we'll understand each other. And so I was like, sweet. So I started going down everything, and I was like, all right, awesome, awesome, awesome. And I was like, okay, let's do this. And so I accepted. And so then we just started talking, and just he was the only one that literally was like actually talking to me and engaging, and not just this stupid small talk or, oh, you're beautiful. Yeah.
I don't even think I told you that.
No, you didn't. And I liked that.
Yeah, I didn't even tell you that.
No, you didn't talk up about my looks or anything like that. And I was like, finally, someone that's looking past that because it's more than that. I could put a paper bag over my head and are you going to like me?
Yeah. Yeah.
So he kept trying to like get to meet me sooner and I kept pushing it off and I was being shy and stupid and finally was like, all right, let's do this. So we met up, but I had to like give little pin drops and locations to my family and to my best friend to let them know where I was at. And if I went missing, because who knows what could go on. He's a
Well, don't forget to tell
veteran.
them what your family told you before.
Which one?
Your
Which
mom
part?
yet about, oh, you better go, and you didn't want to go the day of the date. Were you there yet or not yet? Where they were kind of saying, no, you're gonna do this. No, you stop it.
Jacqueline too.
Yeah.
Jacqueline was really like, no, you're doing this, you're going, and you better dress nice, and you better look cute, and you better get out of your sweats. And they're drilling me. And even Monica, she's like, you better do this. And she even helped me like pick my outfit and everything and get ready beforehand. And we did like a whole little pre-fuck beforehand. And I was talking to her on the way there and whatnot. And then get there and this fool over here is just like staring at me all googly eyed, and then he even made me even more like a little girl. I couldn't look at him. It was awkward, like a little girl.
She still does that now.
I do.
See?
It's stupid. I can't. So, anyways, that night was something else. Yeah, it was a good first date. Um, Never really been on a date. I had always been friends with my previous relationships before getting into something. So that was the main big thing with him was I told him in the get-go, I was like, in order for this to go anywhere, we have to become best friends. And if we can't be best friends, then this isn't going to work. And then we got to work on healing, and we have a lot of traumas and things that we got to do. I can help you. I know how to help you, but um, I said you have to do the work. I'm not doing the work. I will do the work with you, but I'm not doing it all for you. So um, that's a whole nother podcast to talk about. But that's kind of in a nutshell my lead up um, before I met Erik. It's a deep one. And we could talk hours about all of the stuff I've gone through, but we will probably go back and visit those things that sometimes, because there's a lot of stuff that we talk about within our past that um, we learn from, we discuss, and we also both do coaching, and I've been a mentor for many years. So there's a lot of stuff that we talk about and discuss, and what we could have done better, what we should have done, what went wrong. So we really, I don't know, I guess dissect and then learn.
Yeah, I mean, we take because everybody has relationships that failed, and you know what you could have did better. And if you think you were perfect, I'll tell you, you're a damn lie. You're a liar because you could have did stuff better, or else you wouldn't be not with that person. So you take from those things that were you messed up at, like all my mistakes, all her mistakes, and well, we put those together so that way they don't happen. Because when you cover those areas and knowing you're not going to get judged or ridiculed or even punished for what you did in the past, it just makes your relationship that much better and easier to talk about because now the other person can maybe see, hey, you're doing this or you're starting to trend this way, and they can be like, nah, and they can pull you back because you may not notice it right away because it could be just a form of habit because it's what you're used to. When really you're not in that situation anymore, and you just need to be able to trust that other person to acknowledge that in a respectful way and pull you back out of it and talk about it so that way that doesn't happen.
Yeah, you said that right. So that's a whole nother another one for another night that we'll be discussing about and talking about is also, those relationships and um, how to uh, put this into your life in a sense of your own relationships and being vulnerable and having tools to be able to be vulnerable and have that safe place to be able to discuss. And it takes ego and putting down ego and pride um, to be able to really talk about things. Because even sometimes it takes me a moment because of backlash from my previous relationships and my um, past the marriage. Um, I would always get this backlash from talking about past relationships, and something would be held over my head. So it's nice to be able to talk about past relationships and things because, like he said, it's important in order to be able to help each other grow and move forward, and how to better understand each other, how to better understand the love language. And it's almost like being able to see through the prisms in a way of seeing those places, or like a broken crystal or something, but being able to see those cracks and where they need to be filled with love to be repaired. So I'm gonna leave that with that for tonight.
Mm-hmm. And I think another thing too is we're no experts by any means, but we did get together right before a quarantine and actually quarantined here about 3 months into a relationship, but yet here we are. So if that's something, we may not be experts, but we at least know what we're doing somewhere because I'm still here. I'm not anywhere else, and she's still with me, and I'm still with her. So we're doing something right. You know, where you've heard, I know people have heard other relationships completely topple and fall apart because now they're with each other 24/7. We were literally with each other 24/7, and I couldn't be blessed to be stuck with any other person. So it was a great quarantine. It was fun. We learned a lot about each other, and that's a whole separate podcast. So see, we already talked about 2 different podcasts that we talked about.
No, 3.
See, math in public is hard. 3 podcasts that we could talk about.
Maybe 4.
Even harder. 4.
Okay, keep going.
So there's a bunch of them out there. So that's just to throw that out there. Like if anything, we're doing something right, and we just want to help share it because if we can help other people, why not? We're working at it pretty good, and we're thriving, and we're both happy. I know I am.
Get out of here.
See the shiny thing go away.
Quiet. Makes me blush. See? Dang it. All right, we're gonna end it.
See you guys next time, whenever that is. Just pay attention to your notifications because there's no set dates or times. So just watch the replay as it comes up.
All right. See you guys later. Good night.